Hey you guys, this is Mr. Millings, and in this video we are going to be doing some mole composition. Specifically, we are going to learn how to do some mass calculations of molecules. So let's jump right in and take a look at our first example. In this example it says, what mass of carbon in grams is in 725 grams of glucose, or C6H12O6. So what we know is we have 725 grams of this stuff here called glucose, C6H12O6. And what we want to know is the mass of just carbon. We want to know the mass of just carbon in this if we have 725 grams of it. So how are we going to do this problem? Well, if we have 725 grams of glucose, the very first thing that we're going to have to do is cancel out grams of glucose. So we're going to put that at the bottom of our little equivalent statement or fraction right here. So we're going to cancel out grams of glucose, or C6H12O6. And we're going to first convert to what? Well, let's first go ahead and convert the grams of glucose to moles of glucose. Moles of C6H12O6. Now, in this next step, what we want to do is we want to cancel out moles of glucose. So where do you think we're going to put that in this little equivalent statement or fraction here? If we want to cancel out moles of glucose, it's going to have to go on the bottom, or that same unit is going to have to go on the bottom or denominator of this fraction here. So moles of C6H12O6, and let's go ahead and convert this to moles of carbon, because if we can convert this to moles of carbon, in our next step what we can do is we can convert the moles of carbon to mass, or grams of carbon. So in this next step here, we're going to want to cancel out moles of carbon. So we'll put that at the bottom of our fraction or equivalent statement. And we're going to want to convert to grams of carbon. So we're going to put that at the top of our equivalent statement. So now, what do we put in these empty spaces right here? Well, let's take a look. We know that 1 mole of C6H12O6 is how many grams? Well, we're going to have to figure out the molar mass of C6H12O6. So if we take a look, glucose is made up of carbon, it's made up of hydrogen, and it's made up of oxygen. And if we take a close look here, we can see that there are 6 moles of carbon for every 1 mole of this entire molecule here. There's 12 moles of hydrogen, and there's 6 moles of oxygen. And so we need to pull out our periodic table, because we need to take the number of moles, which in this case is 6, and multiply it by the molar mass of carbon, which if you take a look at the periodic table that just popped up in front of you, you'll see the molar mass is 12.01 grams per mole. And we're going to go ahead and leave off the units here, and that's acceptable when we're doing the molar mass calculation. We'll get 72.06 here. We do the same thing with hydrogen. We're going to take 12 times the molar mass of hydrogen. If you take a look at the periodic table that just popped up, you'll see that the molar mass of hydrogen is 1.01. That gives us 12.12. And if we take a look here, we have 6 oxygens, so we have to take 6 times the molar mass of oxygen. If you look at that periodic table that just popped up, you'll see that the molar mass of oxygen is 16.00. This is going to give us 96.00. And so now what we have to do is we have to add these values up here, and what we're going to end up with is 180.18 grams for every mole. So we know that 1 mole of glucose is 180.18 grams. 180.18 grams. What about right here? Well, let's take a look here. If we look at this molecule glucose here, C6H12O6, 1 mole of this entire molecule here contains 6 moles of carbon. If we look right here, 6 moles of carbon. Now, if we take a look right here, what's going to go in these spaces? Well, we know from the periodic table of elements that 1 mole of carbon is 12.01 grams of carbon. And so now, if we take a look, we can see what's going to cancel out. We can see that we have grams of glucose on top and grams of glucose on the bottom. They can cancel. We have moles of glucose on top and moles of glucose on the bottom. They can cancel. We have moles of carbon on top, moles of carbon on the bottom. They can cancel, leaving us with what unit left over. What unit is going to be left over? Well, as you see right here, we have grams of carbon left over. So now we start from the left with our starting quantity. We're going to work our way from left to right, and if we come across a number other than 1 in the denominator, we're going to divide. And if we come across a number other than 1 in the numerator, or on top, we're going to multiply. So we simply take this divided by this, times this, times this. So let's go ahead and put that in our calculator. We're going to take 725 divided by 180.18 times 6 times 12.01, and we're going to end up with 290, it looks like, 290 grams of carbon. So we have 3 significant figures here, and we have 3 significant figures in our answer. So if we have 725 grams of glucose, how many grams of just carbon will there be? Looks like there's going to be 290 grams of carbon. So if you like what you see, go ahead and click that little bomb in the bottom right hand corner, and that will subscribe you to my channel. And feel free to leave any comments or questions in the comment section down below. And I really hope you guys found this helpful.